words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be meaningful to you, Lord. Amen. So, some of you who were here, I think it was in January, when Pastor Johnson and my fellows were here, may recall that I mentioned that I'd asked him if he would lead the service and if he was willing to preach the sermon. And his response to me at that time was, well, let me look at the gospel, and I'll let you know. And he did let me know, and interestingly, I didn't get to find out until after they were here, because Dottie and I were with them over in Fort Lauderdale after having taken a whole touring trip, and his text message back to me came through at that point, that he was willing to do so, but by then I'd already prepared the message, and he said, well, go ahead. Well, Pastor Andreas, about a month ago, asked me if I would lead this service and do the homily as well. And I said, sure. And unlike Pastor Johnson, who was much wiser than I hadn't looked at the gospel message, which is a challenging one, to say the least. But nonetheless, it's a necessary one. It's kind of interesting that it comes up at this point, because really it would be probably very good in October or November, because of when we start talking about stewardship. But we're not just talking about stewardship here for living faith. We're talking about stewardship to our fellow persons that live on this earth. And that's part of the message. And the stewardship involves not just giving money to churches, to other organizations, but being supportive of people who are in need and reaching out to them in many different ways, including with money. Now, there's also a challenge for me, and it kind of strikes home a bit to me, because in the message, because Dottie and I, neither Dottie nor I have pensions. We had 403Bs when we worked and that kind of thing, so that we end up managing a lot of our money, and a lot of our money is predicated on the income that it produces. And I'm always on guard about, well, where is their greed and where is the providing for needs? And that's always a challenge to me, to look at that and see what is my motivation for doing these things. So I take to heart some of the things that are in this message, and have taken it to heart for a number of years. As I see it, there's two parts to this message. And the first one is that very carefully Jesus makes a clear distinction between what the Jewish people thought he was here for and what he was actually here for. And he did that with a young man who asked about the inheritance. And he quite clearly indicated that he's not here for civil or temporal matters. He's here for spiritual matters. He wasn't intended to be a magistrate or a judge. His message was bringing the message of care and love to those in need. So, the Jewish people had difficulty receiving that message because it didn't fit what their thoughts were about a Messiah. But clearly, in the message and in the parable, what he's doing is cautioning all of us against covetousness. And he used the parable to highlight what I consider to be a problem with covetousness. I think it's noteworthy that he doesn't have criticism for the man having possessions. He doesn't have criticism for him having the land. He doesn't have criticism for him having the buildings that he had. And clearly the man was apparently well-to-do and had acquired a lot of assets. So that was not the issue. What I see as the issue was the man's attitude towards these possessions. And the attitude was, I've acquired all this, and I want to hold it for myself and keep even more of it. So clearly, the thought was not, the man's thought process was not about what his needs were, but what his desires and wants were, and what to do with the abundance that he had received. He had this newfound gain, and he didn't know what to do with it, other than to try to hold it in to himself. Henri Nouwen, who was a Dutch Catholic priest, wrote, "There are three great temptations for all of mankind. They are power, fame, and success. And they lure us like bees to honey. Money oftentimes equates to power. And I suggest that at least two of what Nguyen had written about apply to the parable of the rich man. And very possibly to the brother who was so concerned about his part of the inheritance. When he said, speak to my brother, I'm assuming the other brother was older. The older brother usually got twice as much as everyone else. And maybe he wasn't sharing that inheritance as quickly as this fellow wanted it. And Jesus cut him off pretty quickly. So the parable, if you were to look at the gospel, contains the word I 5 times. The parable also contains the word my 5 times. So it's not hard to see where the landowner's mind was at. It was at mine and I. And I think this goes to the heart of the point that Jesus was making. Jesus left us with 2 great commandments. Love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with your mind. And love your neighbors as yourselves. I don't think there's any connection to those commandments and what this landowner was doing in the parable. The I's and the my's have a direct connection to us today. After all, who has not heard of the me generation? We've experienced the me generation. And there are many other generations that, in my assessment, are inner focused rather than outer focused. And clearly, what Jesus was looking for us to do was to be focused outside of ourselves and looking at the needs of our neighbors. So, like this rich man, it is tempting to think of the fruits of our labors as being ours. However, we have a hymn that we're going to sing during the offering. And I was struck because Douglas and I picked these hymns probably a month ago or more. And independent of that, that hymn came to my mind when I was reflecting on this passage. So the first line of the hymn is, we give thee but thine own, whatever the gift may be. All that we have is thine alone, a trust, O Lord, from thee. I think that captures the essence of what Jesus was talking about. We think that what we have is ours, when actually what we have is ours to provide for our needs and to share with others. At the end of the day, neither we nor the rich man will have any use for any of our earthly possessions. There's a commentator that I like to refer to a lot. Actually, I've mentioned this in the past. My father left me these 4 volumes of Paul Kretzmann. And Kretzmann, regarding this passage, points out that the challenge of excess wealth brings, he writes, this is what he writes, every dollar that God blesses a person with beyond actual needs of life for himself, his family, is not an asset in God's sight, but a liability. Well, the other night at our book study group, whatever name we're going to do that, Marty, I believe it was talking about how difficult it is for a rich man to get to heaven, would be equivalent to a camel passing through the eye of a needle. And I think in some ways that's what Kretzmann is talking about. It seems impossible for a camel and a man to pass through the eye of a needle. However, in some of the readings from years ago, I've read that there actually is a place that you can pass through that's called the eye of the needle. So hopefully that's what Jesus was referring to. In Luke, further on, the 34th verse, Jesus said, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." So think about our society today and think about the society past, and how much different are things. We've had the expression keeping up with the Joneses for years. There was another expression, he who has the most toys wins. I don't know what you win. You're not taking them with you. And the advertising that we are subjected to, that continually inundates us with, buy X, Y, and Z. You will be healthy, you will be wealthy, you will be wise, happy, whatever it may be that you think this product is going to do for you, because we're, in this case, out of focus to serve something inner. It's interesting that this week they came out with a revision of the gross domestic product, and everything is either flat or down, except one area, consumer spending. That's rising, continues to rise. In the addiction field, when I was working in that field, I had a word that I like to use, and the word is insidious. And the way it works with addiction is that it's almost a subliminal way to try to draw the person back into their addiction. And in many ways, I think this is true of our society and the attraction that causes us to seek more and more things and more money to try to acquire those things. Not that there's anything wrong with having money, and this is kind of the down part of the message. I'll get a little bit upper as we go on. I happened to read something, and I never really paid much attention to him, but there was a comedian by the name of George Carlin, who allegedly was an atheist. And after his wife died, he wrote a soliloquy. And one of the things in that really struck me, for a man who theoretically was an atheist. What he said was, we have multiplied our possessions, but reduced our values. So the farmer had a problem, and if we're not careful, so could we. However, we do have a direction away from the problem. St. Paul writes in Timothy, as to the rich in this world, charge them not to be poor, nor to set their hopes on uncertain riches, but on God, who furnishes us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good deeds, liberal and generous. Lay up for themselves a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of the life which is life indeed. H.W. Beecher, who was a clergyman, wrote, riches will not hurt man that is benevolent, that lives to do good for the glory of God and the welfare of men. And finally, one more quote provides us with a direction. Albert Barnes, the theologian, wrote, the path of true wisdom is to seek first the kingdom of God and be ready to die for it. Then it doesn't matter what we have here in the way of possessions. The Lord laid on me, and I'm not the largest Beatles fan, but nevertheless, the song, All You Need Is Love, came into my day in the middle of the night regarding today. And some of the words, I'm not sure that they were written to what I'm addressing here, what Jesus taught me. But anyway, nothing you can do that can't be made. No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love, love, love. Love is all you need. And it goes on like that. When we follow this, there is no longer a question of our generosity to God and our fellow man. No word